let's talk Zoom security and safety in the online classroom. So the most important tool is going to be down here at the left. Think of this as, in some ways, as knowing where to get the fire extinguisher. So you're going to be able to put out fires or prevent them using security. Now, this is a technical fix, and I think we shouldn't rely on this 100%, even though it's helpful. We should really rely on the protocols that we establish in the online classroom, the expectations we set with our students. It's more of a relational, interpersonal thing, and then the technical stuff is a great fallback and is a great way to ensure some protection even from the outside. So let's focus on the external first, and then we'll go to the internal pieces. So external, I can lock my meeting, right? Because maybe someone could get this address right here. It's easy to share, right? Could copy that link. It could get shared somewhere. Students are going to have that link and that URL to access your class, so they could possibly pass it on. So by locking the meeting, nobody gets in. So once it starts, you've got everybody in there. You know they're your students. You lock that thing, and nobody else gets in. Now the waiting room is just that. So it's going to have like a little holding tank. It's going to notify you. It's going to say from the participants list, and at the top of your screen, hey, so-and-so is in the waiting room. Do you want to admit them? And you can admit them, or you can hit admit all. And like, say you had 27 students, you scan through them, you just admit them all into your classroom. So that's a really nice feature to keep your classroom safe. Now, allowing participants to screen share, chat, rename themselves, unmute themselves. A lot of this is going to depend on the developmental level of your students. If you're working with grad students, you could probably just leave all this stuff on, not a big deal. The younger your students, or it's really just depending on your context and their developmental level, you may need to lock a few of these down. So you may need to revoke their ability to chat if what you're finding is the side conversations don't pertain to class. And again, that's set up in the expectations in the protocols that should start in your syllabus or at the first day of class. And then this gives you a technical way to revoke that. You might kick a student out of class. Sadly, that's had to happen for some folks, and that's where the lock meeting, again, is going to keep that student out, or it would put them, if you've got the waiting room on, then they're going to end up going into the waiting room and they can't just come in. If you have a student who, if you have a problem with background noise with students, you can always of course, start the meeting where everybody's muted. You can hit that mute everyone button, but then you can also go a step further, and they can't unmute themselves unless you do it from the participants list. So that's going to make more work for you. So that, again, that wouldn't be my default, but it could be necessary in some situations. All right, the renaming piece is interesting. I mean, students can go into their thumbnail, change their name, and that could be something. They could use words you don't want people seeing on the screen, right? Or it could create confusion for you because it's a new class. You haven't got to know their names. You don't know who that person is. And all of a sudden, they're Drake or Justin Bieber or Taylor Swift or, whoever. So you may want to revoke that. It's a really useful thing, though, when you put people in groups, because you could say, my name is Jake Evans, and, Jake Evans, and then group one. And so they are able to, as you get into the big group, you go from breakouts back into the big group. You'll also see what group people are in. So it's a nice thing to be able to use with students. And then, of course, screen sharing's probably a pretty huge one to lock down or revoke. Again, depending on the developmental level of your students, because they could share the screen with inappropriate content, which I've heard that happening to a number of classes from folks reporting on just things that come up during class. Okay, so those are the security basics. Again, go back to the protocols, resource, download that document, rely on that for kind of the 80%, and then rely on this for probably the 20%, or if you run into some emergency situations.